Start time?
Yep.
So we're good. All good. Yep. When you're ready.
Okay, good evening everyone. I declare the ordinary meeting open. I would like to acknowledge that tonight we are meeting on the traditional lands of the Gubbi Gubbi people, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I know that everyone is in attendance and there are no apologies. There are two sets of minutes for confirmation today. Firstly, the minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 30th of April 2020 be received and confirmed. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Councillor Petition, thank you. Taken as read and accepted. Second set of... all in favour?
You don't forget to vote.
Second set of minutes are the minutes of the special meeting held on the 13th of May 2020 be received and confirmed.
I'll move it.
Thank you, Councillor Ricky. Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. All in favour? Thank you. There are no mayoral minutes. Does anyone have any petitions? I have a petition to be tabled by Debbie Campbell. The petition is for an enclosed dog area at Clarey Park in Tait Street, Tewantin. I move that this be received and referred to the Chief Executive Officer to determine appropriate action.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favour? There are no mayoral minutes. I've said that. No notified motions, no presentations, no deputations. Item number 8 on the agenda is consideration of committee recommendations. Set of recommendations is the first one is the Planning and Environment Committee recommendation, and we only have one item on there. Would someone want to move the recommendation?
I'll move that recommendation.
Thank you.
Oh,
Second. Thank you. All in favour? Sorry. Taken. Thank you. Page 5 of we move to the Services and Organisation Committee meeting recommendations. I'll read the items one by one, and if anyone wants to raise an issue or move a motion, please do so at the time it is read out. The first is the Audit and Risk Committee membership. This was referred to the General Committee. The second amendment to Councillors' acceptable requests, guidelines, policy was also referred to the General Committee. The third is the Council's expense reimbursement and provisions of facilities policy. The fourth is the Councillor representation of various boards, external organisations and working groups. 5 is the Community Disaster Response and Recovery Grants Program. Item 6, Waste Management, 6 monthly report. 7, Community Services Department Update, 3rd quarter, 2019-20. 8, Infrastructure Services Department Update, 3rd quarter, 19-20. Corporate Services Department Update, 19-20. Executive Services Department Report, 3rd quarter, 19-20. Operational Plan Progress Report, 3rd quarter, 19-20.
I'll move it.
Thank you.
And I'll second that.
Okay. All in favour? Thank you. Unanimously. On page 9 of the agenda, we have the General Committee recommendations. I'll read again these items one by one, and if anyone wants to raise an issue or move a motion, please do so at the time it is read out. Audit and Risk Committee membership. Amendment to Councillors' acceptable request guidelines, which is subject to a further report at item 3. Item 3, the further report amended to Councillors' acceptable request guidelines policy. Item 4, further report to the Planning and Environment Court of Appeal for the refusal of application for material change of use for at 244 Tablelands Road, Cooran. Number 5.
Sorry, there might be a couple of councillors.
I believe there might be a.
what do I have to say? I declare a real conflict of interest in this matter, to find under the section 175D of the Local Government Act 2009. As prior to election, I signed a petition relating to this application.
Thank you. Leave the room. Thank you, Councillor.
I, Tom Wagner, have a conflict of interest. I declared real conflict of interest in this matter as defined in section 175D of the Local Government Act 2009, as I currently have an NBN tower located on my property and receive income from NBN via lease arrangement.
Your
Thank
choice.
you, Councillor Wagner. Councillor Stumper.
Good things come in threes. I declare I've got a perceived conflict of interest in this matter as a result of my relationship with Bill and Christine Tait, who supported me during the 2020 election by undertaking letterbox drops
Mr and Mrs Page have since advised that they are now co-respondents to this appeal, so I think it's appropriate that I leave the meeting for debate.
Thank you, Councillor Stockwell. Would anyone like to move, well, after Councillor Stockwell leaves?
What do you think?
Would anyone like to move the motion?
I would, Madam Mayor, I'll move the motion.
Councillor Wilkie?
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's
Things all been said.
thrash that out
Yep.
on Monday.
Yep. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Thanks.
back.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Item number 5, Councillor Lawrence.
I would like to move the staff recommendation from the General Committee meeting and add the following to item 8. Condition 8.1 and 2 shall apply for 12 months commencing 22nd of May 2020 unless further extended by Council in writing. After that time, if not extended by Council in writing, condition 8.3 and 4 shall apply. Condition 8.3, noise emanating from the premises, including amplified or non-amplified noise and patron noise prior to 10 p.m. must not exceed 90 decibels, fast response when measured approximately 3 metres from the source of noise. And 4, noise emanating from the premises, including amplified or non-amplified noise and patron noise after 10 p.m. must not exceed 85 decibels, fast response when measured approximately 3 metres from the source of noise. I'm requesting...
For a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Councillor Stockwell. Councillor Lawrence.
I'm requesting that the approval be reviewed after the first year of trial to assess suitability and performance and to ensure that this is a community approved and workable solution. Firstly, I'd like to say that the Sunshine Beach Surf Club has a very long history serving the local community, and the application before us has the potential for the surf club to represent a further example of this. Having met with the licensee this morning and representatives of the surf club, I know that this will be the case. The applicant requests a change to an existing development approval to amend a condition relating to acoustic requirements. He seeks to replace 2 very specific noise limits with the Regulation 40 criteria used by the Office of Liquor and Gaming Regulation for licensed premises. The applicant argues that the current approval was given as the best possible condition at the time, which was prior to construction of the existing building in 2017. Now that it's constructed, it seeks to change this condition. I have 2 concerns with this application. My first concern is around the unknowns. The surf club has been operating for only 3 months. Its gross floor area has increased significantly and its capacity to carry more people has also increased. My other concern is that if we approve the change to the existing development approval and get it wrong, we cannot go back and change it. By reviewing the approval after the first year of trial gives Council the opportunity to monitor compliance with noise criteria and ensure that music levels measured are consistent with noise predictions and, more importantly, with community expectations. Finally, to address the potential adverse impacts on residential amenity, I'd like that condition to require a provision to manage issues arising from complaints, including a hotline number which has been tested and is manned throughout the club's trading hours. I've understood from the licensee that the surf club has provided residents with contact numbers in the past and take very seriously their role and relationship with the community. It's therefore recommended that the approval be reviewed after the first year of trial. After that time, if not extended by Council in writing, then the original 2 conditions shall apply.
Thank you, Councillor.
So just a question for staff, just to confirm that conditions 3 and 4 and section 8, as the councillor has alluded to, represent the existing conditions of approval.
Thank you. That's correct. They are the original conditions of approval.
Thank you.
Question, the existing conditions of approval which would apply if they fail to meet the Office of Liquor and Gaming Regulation conditions of part 1 and 2 of the motion. I understand, is it true that the 90 decibel limit basically represents background noise and light entertainment and could easily be breached if there is some additional entertainment, such as a musician playing.
The existing condition, the current condition, would only allow conversation by patrons. It wouldn't allow music outside at all. Even low-level music is likely to be breached. So the proposed change requested by the applicant would allow low-level music to be played out in the outdoor area.
Could I ask, the conditions that were originally part of the approval, which the applicant has sought to change and would be reverted to if they can't meet those conditions, which will be monitored by the Office of Liquor and Gaming Regulation, do other surf clubs operate under those conditions, or do they operate under conditions similar to the parts 1 and 2 of this motion proposed?
Yes, the Noosa Head Surf Club operates under similar conditions to 1 and 2 above. Bridging Beach Surf Club is an old approval, so I'll have to review that, I'm not sure.
I have a question, just in regard to the low-level music that you said would be allowed to be played. What time constraints is on that?
So there is a further condition currently included on the approval, limiting the hours of operation of the outdoor area till 10 p.m. So after 10 p.m, everyone must go inside and they're allowed to operate until midnight.
Thank you.
That's another. Sorry.
Yeah, you go, Councillor.
If there was if conditions 1 and 2, which are monitored by the Office of Liquor and Gaming Regulation, there's a sound limiting device, I understand, they've got their own methods of measuring sound. If they weren't met, does the Office of Liquor and Gaming Regulation have what would be their recourse, what would be the steps they would take if these measures aren't being met?
So the conditions would be on Council's approval, so Council could enforce those conditions.
It's 1 and 2.
Yeah, 1 and 2, if we approve this change today. Otherwise, liquor licensing may choose to reflect these conditions on their approval, and they have quite a compliance program in place for applications that are regulated under the liquor licence. So they actually impose quite hefty fines for non-compliance with conditions of their liquor licence.
So just to clarify, if conditions 1 and 2 weren't met, Office of Liquor and Gaming Regulation would impose fines. Are there any other measures they could impose? Any other restrictions they could impose?
I guess they have the option of providing a warning, but it is their practice to issue fines reasonably promptly.
Do they have the option of taking away a liquor licence for repeated breaches?
Yes, I don't know their practices fully to answer your question fully, Councillor, but I understand they could rescind the licence.
And
sorry, no, you
go. Well, I'm on a roll. So if conditions 3 and 4 were to apply, that would preclude, say, local musicians being able to play at this venue.
Yes. So 3 and 4 would not permit someone playing on a guitar outside or music through speakers at all. They're likely to exceed the noise limits.
Thank you.
My question is for Sunil. Sunil, what was previously the case and to what is being proposed by the applicant, in this case the surf club, what is in your opinion, the major difference? Is there a huge difference in regard to sound?
And Sunil, I'll get you to come closer so people here who are watching from home.
There is an 8 to 10 decibel difference because we set a limit of 90 decibels before. So that's the range that they're asking for some leeway in terms of the proposed revised conditions. So like I said the last time, is that the development was approved to extend for specific use, that's outside dining. And that increases the size and the number of people in there. So I think the emission of, like I said, the normal noises that come from patron noise, gaming machines, parking, etc., they'll be within our existing conditions, not the new one that's being proposed by the applicant. So they'll meet that. But once they get into music, which they're likely to do inside the venue, not outside dining, they're likely to breach that 90 decibels at all the time, I would say, because a normal standard rock band will give you about 100 decibels anyway. So you've got to control that. In order for them to do that, they'll have to shut down and close all the doors that's leading to the outside to maintain that noise level. And like Kerry was saying, is for outside they have a speaker with light entertainment noise, which is unlikely to breach the 90 decibels.
Thank you.
Up to 10 o'clock in the evening.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Another question. If this motion was passed after 12 months, if the council wasn't satisfied with the operation of these particular sound limits, this would lock council into imposing these conditions 3 and 4 and not allow them to consider other options?
The alternative would be for them to come back and ask for further changes to the conditions. So that there's always that option available to an applicant to come back with further changes. If they don't do that, they would have to comply with conditions 3 and 4.
Right.
So, just following on, and I second it, and in listening to it and reading it again, is there sufficient direction in this motion for staff to decide whether to extend or not? So as I'm just reading it, there is no if they comply we will extend, or if they don't comply we won't extend in the motion. So it's implied, but is there sufficient direction in the motion for staff to make a decision about whether to extend?
Well, I drafted the condition for Councillor.
Oh,
So I think it's adequate and implied.
It is implied.
And certainly any test would be against the planning scheme requirements for amenity.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify something that was said in the questions going to and fro with regard to being allowed to have music outside versus inside the premises. That I don't see anything within the conditions here that alters whether music can or can't be played outside. Can you clarify the level of noise emanating outside of the premises that is allowed, and whether music can or can't be played outside the premises?
What officers are advising is that the existing conditions would not permit outdoor music outside at the moment. They wouldn't be able to meet those conditions, those noise levels specified in the condition.
But these would permit some level of external music up until 10 p.m, provided that noise levels weren't breached, which include consideration for background noise.
Yeah. So the recommended conditions provide a little bit more flexibility and would allow increased noise slightly outside, which would then accommodate some music.
Okay,
outside.
thank you. That explains it. Thank you.
Yep.
I'm happy to talk to the motion. I actually like the flexibility given in items, the first two items. I think, as explained by staff at the General Committee, I think what they do is provide the flexibility to have an operation there that does provide a range of entertainment mixes at different times of day and different times of night, which won't have an adverse impact on neighbours. But I also like the concept of having a 12-month trial period to make sure that that's the case. It's pretty simple. I like, they'll be much more attuned to meeting their noise management provisions if they know that in 12 months' time we'll be looking over their shoulder and saying, how did you do? So that's why I support it.
Yeah, look, I support it as well. I think it's a simple way of introducing the new limits that the surf club want, and in the event that they've got 12 months to prove that they can manage sound for their neighbours in that period of time, and in the event that it's not successful, we revert back to the original conditions. So it's a 12-month trial of these new conditions.
Look, I appreciate the intent of this motion before us, but and I appreciate and I support the idea of a review after 12 months to see how they're going. But this motion before us actually commits us to a course of action that if there's difficulties, if there's difficulties with the current conditions, it locks us into imposing conditions that will not allow this venue to have live musicians as are allowed at other locations, doesn't allow us to consider other options of managing the situation. And items 3 and 4 in these conditions under 3 and 4 do not apply to other similar venues such as the Noosa Head Surf Club, and that would be unfair in my view to impose a condition on the Sunshine Beach Surf Club that is currently not operating with some success at the Noosa Head Surf Club. I do support a review after 12 months, but not one that locks us into imposing a condition that doesn't apply to other surf clubs and precludes the possibility of this surf club supporting local musicians.
Question to the CEO. The way I read it, there is the condition upon which extension wouldn't be granted is not specified. Therefore, there is still scope within this motion for alternative responses other than just reverting to 3 and 4. It's only if we don't decide not to extend.
That's correct, and that's what Kerry said previously in her answer, is that they always have the option to come back if the option 1, so to speak, or the next 12 months is not working. They can come back with an alternative. If that's not acceptable, then the default, if you like, goes to paragraphs 3 and 4. But they always have that option to come back with an alternative, which it's up to the council to consider.
I think what Councillor Wilkie said is very valid. I mean, we don't want to discriminate based on where this venue is in comparison to other ones. I also noted that a report from one of our employees saying that council has not received any noise complaints about the surf club over the last few years. But obviously the reopening and the renovations have only been since January. So obviously this is a trial period. But I mean, it has a very good reputation in the community. There's been very few, if any, noise complaints. I think a trial period is good, but I think it's very important to have that flexibility, as Councillor Wilkie said, so we can revisit that. And then if this is, if things aren't working or there's community uproar, then we have that ability to change it. So I think the 12-month trial period is worthwhile.
Question. Mr. CEO, if amendment was moved that suggested a review after 12 months, would that be a negation of this particular motion? If we amended this motion to read review condition 8, 1 and 2 after 12 months, commencing 22nd of May 2020, full stop, without committing us to taking this particular course of action down below, would that be a negation of this motion?
I don't think you can do that, because what that would do is if that condition then falls over, there wouldn't be a condition.
That's right.
You actually have to have that as your fallback.
Sorry, the amendment would be, so the paragraph here says it starts with condition 8 and 1. 8, 1 and 2 would read, condition 8, 1 and 2 shall apply for 12 months commencing 22nd of May and be reviewed after 12 months. Full stop.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that if that review doesn't occur or there's an issue there, that condition expires and there's no noise control whatsoever. Is that your understanding? Yeah, that would be the case. So that condition would fall away, which is why you need to have that plan B, so to speak, built in.
Well, my intention is to have an amendment that will allow those conditions to continue, but be reviewed after 22nd of May 2020, unless changed by council.
Well, I think that's that's what the wording's doing at the moment. But it's basically saying that condition 1 and 2 shall apply for that period.
Yes. Shall continue to apply.
Yep.
Until reviewed by council.
Well, that's what it said. It's saying it's applying for 12 months until the 22nd of May 2020, unless it's extended by council. So that continues at that point, to that point.
Yeah.
And then if it's not extended, then paragraphs 3 and 4 come into play.
Well, what I'm trying to avoid is your council being committed to applying 3 and 4. What I'm trying to do is have an amendment. My question is, if there was an amendment that required a review after 12 months, how would that be worded? A review after 12 months, it doesn't commit us to imposing these conditions 3 and 4.
Having a review is not sufficient. If you're having a condition with a time frame on it, then that has to be dealt with.
Yes.
And if it doesn't continue, then you have to have a plan B. So I'm not too sure that you can achieve what you're trying to achieve unless Kerry's got an alternative view, but I don't think that if you've got a condition, it's got to apply for a period of time or unlimited time. If it applies for a period of time, then it either gets extended or, as we said before, the applicant can put forward an alternative.
Yeah.
But you do need that fallback.
Yeah. Common sense would suggest that we've had reviews after 12 months of certain conditions. Common sense would suggest that council is within its right to review conditions after 12 months without there being a gap in conditions applying. Is that your understanding?
The other developments that we've applied to the timing condition have been ones that haven't commenced. So we've timed it so that the use lapses, after 12 months or unless extended further by council. We've got a use that's already commenced. So this was the best way, I thought, to word it. I don't have an alternative for you there.
Yeah, my solution didn't work either.
I don't have a solution. I think the question is it the understanding of staff that the amendment actually suggests that after 12 months that the condition will be reviewed based on noise complaints and all the rest of it, and will be allowed to continue provided that the noise complaints haven't been sufficient to cease those conditions from applying with and having new conditions or reverting back to the old conditions.
The only other option we might put is you could say after that time, if not extended by council in writing, conditions 8, 3 and 4 shall apply unless otherwise agreed to be changed by council. Just to,
That wasn't the intent of the change. I repeat, sorry, questions. So Carey, Carey, my concern is, is it appropriate for the Surf Club to be asking for these conditions, given that it's just a newly constructed surf club and we really haven't understood the enormity or the impact, the true impact of noise on residential and business amenities. And that's where my request has come from. I have no doubt that the surf club takes, and I said it, they take very seriously the responsibility and the relationship with the community. They do only good. My concern is with
point of order, Madam Chair. I think the councillor is now
Okay.
talking towards the
Quite a question in there somewhere.
So my question is it unreasonable to ask for this review?
Yeah. Look, officers have recommended the change to the condition, and we've recommended on the basis of an acoustic report, an experienced operator in acoustic management mitigation strategies. So we have recommended that change. We're confident that it will work. But I understand that councillors may wish to impose a time limit on them, given the surrounding residents are quite close in proximity, and it would provide the opportunity to council to have some assurity that there's a fallback. If it doesn't work, then we can fall back to the other conditions. So it's a reasonable approach, but it's not one that we've recommended.
Would it be an acceptable amendment? So if the line, after that time, if not extended by council, a review of conditions shall apply. A review of conditions shall take place. So after that time, if not extended by council, a review of conditions shall apply. Which it doesn't lock us into. It doesn't lock us into 3 and 4.
I think the answer to that is no. Council doesn't have the ability with town planning conditions to change them at its will in the future. They at a point in time, so the applicant has certainty in terms of what they do need to comply with. So I don't think you can actually say that council reserves the right to change conditions into the future. It has to be part of the process.
Sorry. Someone asked me a question.
Can you have a comment on that?
Just to follow protocol. Just to add to that, that's correct. It would create an uncertainty that we don't have it's not an appropriate thing to do. In practice, if that condition is not extended and it falls back to the current conditions and that reflect the concerns that the applicant have now got, and our experts have said that it does limit their ability to do indoor and outdoor music. What would happen then is the applicant would then come back to us with an alternative and there would be another process. So I don't think there's a need to put a review in, because what they would then do is go, if we've defaulted to the current position, that's still not workable for us. How about this option? And that's the right process for them to do, to seek a change to their conditions.
So what you're saying is, in exactly the same way that they're doing currently, they would come back to us with a request to alter the condition once those conditions fall back.
That one didn't work.
Yes, that's correct.
Madam Chair, I'm going to ask the motion be put.
Yes. Okay. All those in favour of the motion by Councillor?
It's a process. If the councillor does wish to pursue a procedural motion, you'd have to go through a formal process. You just can't request that. My suggestion, my advice to council would be that you would let the debate finalise through the normal process. That would be my advice.
All right.
So anyone who hasn't spoken to the motion should speak to it, and then there's the right of reply. That would be my advice.
Although we can, Mr. CEO, your advice is always excellent. We do have a councillor's moved a procedural motion. We could allow that to run its course as well and have it defeated.
I did forget that would cease the other councillors are given the opportunity to discuss. So I'll withdraw the procedural motion.
It hasn't been seconded yet.
Can I speak to the motion?
Councillor Pinsell, Councillor Wickner, any comments? Would you like to speak to the motion? Any more questions?
Do I have to ask a question or speak
No,
to
you
it?
can speak to the motion.
Okay. Well, it's turned into a rather complex debate around how we proceed forward with this, and thank you everyone for your contribution. I guess that the main course from Councillor Lawrenson is because you're concerned with the amenity of the area with regards to the noise complaints, but we also, I don't want to see this surf club limited if those conditions aren't applied across the board equitably. That would be my concern.
Thank you, Councillor Pinsell. Councillor Lawrenson, would you like to reply?
I sound like a broken record sometimes because I keep saying the same thing. We have a duty of due care and diligence. We also have a commitment to the community to make sure that we take time in making decisions. There has to be a balance. We've got to consider what the community wants, and we've got to ensure that a surf club, a great surf club, flourishes. We need to find middle ground. I don't believe we have in front of us enough information or data to ensure that to go ahead with this approval. My concerns, I've told them, all these uncertainties, we're chartering new territory. We can't go back and change the approval once it's been approved. And I keep making reference in the general meeting, we've got an industry standard, we've got a community standard. The two must meet, we need to understand that if there is an erosion of residential amenity, if the community's unhappy, we've got to listen. We have to listen. This is why we're sitting here, not to approve everything that comes through council. That's not our job. Our job is to think with the community, go out and talk to the community, find out what they want. And I've been out to the community. I've spoken to businesses, I've spoken to the surf club, and what I've understood, and that's why I put this forward, is to move forward, what is reasonable is to allow the surf club its conditions, provided it honours that condition after 12 months. Let's sit down with the surf club after 12 months. If what they've promised they deliver, fine, there's no issue. But let's meet the community and let them know that we're also looking out for them, not just the surf club. So, you know, again, I stand by my commitment to the community, and I stand by my commitment to small business, that the two can work hand in hand. And this proposal is reasonable.
All those in favour?
We didn't want him in our 6-1 club.
to item number 7, on the page 12 of our agenda. Item 6, beg your pardon. Sorry, page 11, item number 6. The application to extend the currency period of development approval for a duplex dwelling at 5 Park Crescent, Sunshine Beach. I will continue to go through these unless anyone wants to move a motion. Item number 7, development application for reconfiguring a lot into 2 lots at 216 Black Mountain Road, Black Mountain. Item number 8, development application for material change of use for ancillary dwelling at 133 Gateway Drive, Noosaville. Item number 9, financial report, April 2020. The recommendation is the General Committee recommendation dated the 18th of May be adopted.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkie. All in favour? Unanimously. There are no ordinary meeting reports, there is no confidential reports, and there are no questions from the public. The next ordinary meeting of Council will be held on the 18th of June 2020. That is all for this evening. I declare the meeting closed